live video, and we are live again. Yay, we're back.
Good. I bet it was the Russians with all this interfering that they're doing. They probably said I'm getting much too big for them, so they're going to cut me down. But I'll tell you what, just before, can we get Niko in a moment, Ruth? I just wanted to observe that when the Donald finishes his present job and goes back to reality television, if he does, I wonder if he'll have a show called Dancing with the Czars.
Oh, bad.
Czars.
That was bad, Angie.
Well, it's the best I can do at this hour of the morning.
So we are waiting for Mr. Niko to get back on.
Okay.
I will text him.
Yes.
We are live.
Come along, Niko. You're a national treasure.
Sorry about that.
We need you.
Our Wi-Fi was up, but our Facebook was down. Oh, Imra Baika is on.
Hello, Imra.
All right. And we have another fabulous musician, producer extraordinaire, Niko Bolas, is joining. And it says, and there he is!
Niko.
Yay! Success!
I'm wearing the same dress as I had last time I came to Capital, so it recognized me. What are you wearing? What are you wearing, dear boy? Have you got a tie?
Hey, I love the tie.
Good. Fine.
It's one of Martin's old ones.
Oh, is it?
I don't know. I always just give credit to Martin for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a good moment, yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm glad. So, are you going to talk, or shall I just ask you questions?
I don't give a shit. You ask me questions.
All right.
Oh, okay, fine. So, well, what was your first interest in music, and did you want to be a performer, or how did you get into all this technical stuff?
I didn't want to be a performer. I wanted to build race cars, and I got stoned listening to headphones, and it said engineer on the back of the record, and in my logic at the moment, I figured, well, whatever that is, I can figure it out. So I got a job in a studio, and I just never went home. That's really what happened.
That's what we always used to say about you. He's lovely, but he just won't go home.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Well.
I promise I won't mention your underpants today.
Oh, good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, because Mika's probably watching, and I would hate to go home and have her ask me what underwear.
What's with the underwear? I'll tell her. Yeah.
Well, the reason Angie can't show the audience your underpants is because she's actually wearing them.
Oh, she's given away my dirty little secret.
It's not a secret.
All my 15 listeners are aware of it now, yeah.
16. And so is Mika. She just said yes.
Oh, you're going to get dinner right in your face when you go home today.
Yeah, well, why should today be any different?
Well, as long as the temperature's right, that's all. I hate cold rice pudding. Oh, that reminds me, totally off track. Fella knocks on the door. He says, Mrs., I'm starving. And she says, do you like cold rice pudding? He said, yes. She said, well, come back tomorrow. It's hot now. Mean jokes. Oh, but you know you can rely on these mean jokes. Now, come on, tell us about your career. What was the first job you got?
Well, the first job I got was at was working for a guy named Brad Pinkstaff. I recorded the gospel choir at the AME church in South Central LA. I would record at night. It was a live 4-track. Well, you'd make stereo, and you'd record the choir, the preacher, and the organ. And then the next morning, I would go to MagTech in Burbank, and they would make cassettes of the sermon. And then you'd sell the cassettes the next night. And these preachers go on the road, and they do guest sermons around the country. So they'd be there for like 7 nights. So you'd sell these cassettes, and that's how you'd pay for it all. You'd sell like 400 or 500 cassettes. A lot of people went.
They used to do that to me in Russia. This is Ruth. When I was performing, they had a truck out back, and they had a guy with a reel-to-reel or a Nagra on his lap. And they would record the first half of the show, and then while I was doing the second half, they had like 5,000 cassette dubbing machines in a back-turn truck.
High-speed duplicators. They're really a trip. They just...
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Jerry Palumbo says hello to you, Mr. Niko.
Jerry, how are you?
And Dave Martinez is on. I guess he's not a daddy yet, but we're still waiting.
Guess, yeah.
Yep. So Angie, everybody's saying you need to project. Speak up.
I need to project very well. I'm projecting.
Ta-da.
Better.
So when you say you wanted to build race cars, tell the folks a little bit about your motorcycle and racing world that you love so much.
It's just more fun than anything else I've ever done. It's really a gas.
Really?
I grew up riding, yeah, well, except for hanging out at your house, but I don't remember that, Ange, so I can't really expand on it. I just grew up riding mini bikes and motorcycles, and then all through high school, instead of going to school, I hung out in garages and gas stations. And then at the end of high school, I got a job for a race team that was based out of New York. So I moved to New York and I worked with them for a couple of years. We had a motorcycle dealership. Then I came back to California. And as I said, in one night when I was at home, I was still trying to be involved in bikes, but I was working at my dad's shop. And I got this idea to try record engineering. So I did, and I'm still trying.
Very bad, darling, sometimes.
Shane Smith says hi, and Valerie Pack wants to go riding this afternoon.
Oh, cool. I hope she has a bike because mine are all broken.
So what was your first encounter in the studio? Like, were you washing dishes and folding cables?
Yeah.
Or how did it...
No, I fixed the leak in the roof. That's how I got my first studio job. Yeah. Silver Lake Studios, a guy named Steve Malang and Greg Skelsa. They did children's records. And I had gone there to, I think Brad had borrowed mics or was lending them mics. And it was the first time I'd walked into a real control room. And this is amazing. There's no windows, there's no clock, no one calls you, and you can stay here as long as you want. I'm in.
And there's free coffee.
Yeah. So I told the guy, I'm a recording engineer and I'd like a job. And he just laughed. I was like 20 years old and he knew I was full of shit. So he says, well, I tell you what, it was the one time it rained in LA. It was like, September or October. He said, if you can fix the leak in the studio, I'll put you to work. So I ran to the hardware store and I bought a bucket of Henry's, the blue liquid tar, fixed the leak, went up on the roof, fixed the leak, came downstairs, soaking wet, and he says, okay, cool. Start wrapping up cables. And that's how I started. Wow. And I did that until I met Val Garay, who gave me my first real job in a real studio.
And that was the famous Record One, right?
Yeah, that was within 6 months. I had met Val, oddly enough, because of his Corvette. I was doing a photo shoot on his Corvette. He had a 57 beautiful numbers matching restored Corvette. And I used to work for Hot Rod Magazine testing minicycles. So I went to the photo shoot to see this car and it turned out to be Val. And when I found out what he did for a living and I said, well, I'm trying to get into studios and whatever. And he said, well, when I get back, he was going to Japan with James Taylor. He says, when I get back, is my phone drooping?
Yes, it is a little. There you are.
There you go. See, these are the things that I don't understand. Where's David? David has an intern for this. I know he does. So I got it. There you go. Val offered me a job to work for the construction company that was building Record One. That was all his design and his studio. And I was fortunate enough to get the gig. So I would work for them from 7 in the morning to 2:30 or 3. Whenever they wrapped up, and then I'd take a fast shower and go to the sound factory, and I was allowed to sit on a chair in the back of the room till the session ended. And I just did that forever until actually Val's assistant, George, got carted off to the hospital. He came down with hepatitis from just working too many hours and tough living, and I filled his shoes. The sound factory hired me the next morning.
Wow. And so what, obviously just from repairing a roof to going to recording the voice of Frank Sinatra is
it's quite a step, isn't it?
It's quite a step. It's a great
It's an absolute straight line, actually.
Okay. So what were some of the, like in the very beginning, who were some of the acts you worked with, and did you did you get to sit in the back of the room, or did you get to twiddle buttons and knobs? And how did you actually start to learn the business?
Well, the first, I was fortunate that I met Val, because that studio, the Sound Factory and then Record One, became the epicenter of most of the records made on Electro Asylum and that whole LA Laurel Canyon scene. Henley and the Eagles and Ronstadt, and they all worked there. So those were my first sessions, and because I helped build it, I knew where all the bones were buried in the studio, and Val had taught me all the little things that you need to know to make a session go well. You know, there's so much more to a session than plug in the microphone, you know.
Sure.
The important things, all the way down to, oddly enough, what's really important is making sure the food's there, it's the right food, it's hot, it's delivered on time, and the artist feels comfortable. And that's the genius that Val had with Record One, is he basically built this beautiful palatial home. It was a giant living room that also had a studio attached to it. You know, it had a great big fireplace and a kitchen, and so people would just show up and camp out, and we just took care of them. Yeah.
Yes,
Angie slept there quite a bit. She told me she was asleep. I don't know what happened. The door was closed, but at any rate, I digress. So that's really where I learned about making records. It's so much more than the music. It's about the energy and the vibe and everybody feeling comfortable and having fun.
Jerry Palumbo's asking, what was your most challenging session and how did you overcome it? I mean, I'm sure there've been many, right, over the years? In the technical, what can go wrong, will go wrong, and.
Well, actually, the moment I earned my money was at the Sony soundstage with Neil Young and a 93-piece orchestra. And right before the downbeat of the first song, his lead vocal mic went away. And that's when every mistake I'd ever made flashed through my brain to try and figure out what went wrong. And I was able to suss it out and get back online with it sounding great and change my underwear in about 2 minutes. So, so Jerry, that was the one.
Which is probably how they wound up in our laundry.
No, that's not how they wound up in your laundry.
That is just crazy. And so, do you like the singer-song? You've done a lot of singer-songwriter stuff. Is that your favorite genre to produce?
No, I just like making records. I don't have a favorite genre. They're all fun.
Okay.
Oh, great. I'd like to come to him with my first project then, Dirty Limericks.
Filthy Limericks by Dr.Angie.
So you're actually going to record your casual conversation?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you've worked at, obviously, some incredible studios from Capitol, ABC, East West. You have your Surf Shack now, and I'm so jealous of your view. It's pretty amazing, folks. He's in Ventura.
It's very cool.
Yeah. And what do you find are the major differences between big city studios like LA and New York and Nashville? Or are there any differences in the culture of the studio?
Oh, there is. Huge. Well, the primary culture of a studio comes from whoever owns it. You know, everything in any organization, whether it's a studio or a company or a production group or a 7-Eleven, it's from the top down. If the person that's running it is good people, then it's a pretty cool place. So a lot of the studios nowadays, if they're owned or maintained or have to answer to a corporation, they tend to have a sterility that you can't completely get rid of. But if they have a great staff that's aware of it, it will go away. And you can have a good time working there. But if you go to a place like, like where I just did Danny's record, Jackson Brown's studio, Groove Masters in Santa Monica, You walk in and you feel like you're at your best friend's garage that has everything you always wished you could buy. And that's the way you work. Your efficiency goes up because you're never aware of what you're doing except having a good time. So you wind up getting first takes and falling into ideas because there's just no pressure. So that's the biggest difference, I think. Because it's so difficult for a studio to meet a bottom line and stay open, with budgets the way they are, and the competition of the perception of the ease of recording, which it's not, but it's perceived to be very easy. It's hard to run it as a business, and a lot of studios have to be able to survive on a break-even basis and stay open because of the love of creation rather than a profit margin.
Right. So it's less to do with the actual city physical location and more to do with the credo and the management, the ownership, and the...
Yeah, it's like you can go to Blackbird in Nashville, and it's John's, John runs it out of his back pocket. You have nothing but a good time there, and anything you want shows up about a nanosecond after you think about it. If you just mention, I wish I had pasta, there's an Italian dinner sitting there. If you just mention, I wish I had an old RCA ribbon mic, 4 of them show up with matching mic pre's, because he loves the art of making records and the feel of a home. Those are the 2 most important things to the owner. It's a metropolis. There's 9 rooms there. They run a very tight ship and a real business, but the guy that owns it loves the process. And he would rather lose money today for you to have a good experience, money.
Yeah, then tomorrow, exactly.
He would rather. Am I still there?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. He'd rather lose money today and have you leave with a good experience and come back, than to offend anybody in any creative way. So those are my favorite places. The problem that I have with Nashville is when you leave the studio, you're in Nashville. and aside from the Waffle House and some of my best friends, I don't really have anything culturally that I love hanging out there for. So there's a lot of personality clashes that can occur in different cities. New York's one of my favorite places to work just because it's New York City. There's the energy. You go to Electric Lady, you're walking in the same doors Jimi Hendrix walked through off of 8th Avenue or 8th Street. And you're a block from Broadway, and it's right at the top of the Village, and it's just nothing but chaos and crazy people, and it's open 25 hours a day. They cram an extra hour in there. And the thing that's amazing about Electric Lady and about New York City is I was there working a month ago or somewhere, and I wanted some oatmeal. There's an oatmeal restaurant in the Village that specializes in oatmeal. So you get your choice of, Irish steel cut with, generic satellite flown in honey from a maple tree in Wisconsin. It's just ridiculous. So that's funny. New York.
That's right. Jerry Palumbo wants to know, you're known for your loud rockin' mixes. What dB level do you mix and listen to in the control room? What dB level do you want? I think they're looking for an 11 here.
Actually, the biggest number I got was at the Hit Factory Studio A, and I was working on a track, and it peaked at 126, which is the same as a jet, and it was actually unworkable. I just wanted to see if I could do it. But it usually it's up. I haven't had a dB meter in a while. I used to run louder. Like when I worked with Neil Young, we would run to, it's not so much decibels as speaker excursion. You just try and fill them up until they can't go out anymore. And one time we actually had a set catch on fire. Seriously, that's why I have a fire extinguisher here. I I had Neil here yesterday, and he looked at it and he goes, "Is that extinguisher because I'm here?" And I went, "No, it's because I'm here." So that was the loudest, I think. It's pretty loud, but it's not really trying to attain decibel level as much as it is. Speaker excursion is a mixing tool. It runs everything up to the peak of inefficiency, and if you can still get clarity through that, then you've got something good going on, and you can feel it.
Bob Schwall says he measured every one of those 126 decibels.
Bob Schwall did. Bob, how are you, man?
He says, "Love you, brother." He says you guys have blown a lot of tweezers together.
We did. Schwall had to change them. What a small world. Why the hell is Bob Schwall watching Angie TeaFlix? That's crazy.
Because I told everybody you were coming on the show, that's why.
Because
That's
we do
funny.
marketing and we tag you and they're watching, you see. It's not just the damn Russians watching.
Wow.
Hey,
Martin wants to have a word.
Martin has a question, or six. Hold on. I'll tell you when you're in the camera.
Buddy.
Hey, man.
Should I go down?
Yeah, sit. Have a seat.
Would you rephrase that?
All right, remember this?
Yeah, we did it.
Oh, I know, man. And I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, shit.
No. And it was like, talk about decibels. Let's go to 11.
Yeah. Well, that record, yeah.
Yeah, and so, we're working on the second one.
Yep, there you go.
And like I told you on the first one was like 19,000 files, right? And you had to like comp everything down and get stereo mixes going. The second one, just that you know, is coming your way probably by the end of the year. It's 96,000 because I could just had to compress everything. So it's EDM meets metal meets opera stars meets rappers. So it's a complete run of the game, of rock and roll. So
96,000 files.
Yes.
Great.
So let friend Vladimir know.
And like Bob Schwall listened to all those decibels, I've listened to all those files from the kitchen.
No shit. Don't you know that Germans are supposed to be efficient? What the?
Yeah, this is the efficiency package. Already 90,000. They were like 300,000, and I packaged them down. Hey, I have one question because
I need a camera stand.
Keeps running in my head.
What did I do? I didn't do it.
Yeah, when you did Boys of Summer, right? You mixed that, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened to that piano at the end of the solo?
Didn't David Page play that piano?
Haven't got a clue.
Well, it was the 80s, so hey.
Yeah.
The rumor was that he was playing it upside down, so vertically. He was laying on the floor and you put the piano like vertical.
I have no idea. But it wouldn't surprise me, but I have no idea.
Well,
that's an honest answer.
Yeah.
Hey, Al Schmidt's watching. Al,
Oh, no!
Oh my goodness, you can't come in here without
I can't come in here. You get it.
Keep on yakking.
Oh,
So, as long as Al approves of the time, that's a good thing. So, what are you working on now? You're doing something very cool you told me about yesterday.
Today, well, I'm doing I made this record with Neil Young about, 100 years ago, and it was 11 verses and 23 minutes long, something like that. So we couldn't finish it because we couldn't put it on a vinyl because it was too long. So now we can put it on a vinyl. So I've edited it down and I'm trying to figure out what I did 20, 30 years ago and mix it. And it came out pretty cool. I'm not done. I'm almost done.
Wonderful.
And then I'm doing a record. The cool thing I'm starting is with Bernard Fowler. He sings with the Stones. And he got Steve Jordan and Clayton Thomas and some percussionists and his favorite cats around play bass. And they covered these old Stones tunes, but they did it with just drums, percussion, bass, and voices. So all the harmonies and the music is Bernard doing voices. And it's interesting. It's a trip. I haven't actually started. I'm sorry, my stand is my duct tape is flopping. So those are the two things I'm working on today.
Fabulous.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we usually end our show with a little limerick, and in your honor, we've actually created one for you. Yes. So
okay, if it says anything about Mika Harmony that's going to get me in trouble, please pick another one.
You're already in as much trouble as you could
Oh,
possibly.
great! That's terrific.
We couldn't. It doesn't, because Ange couldn't find anything to rhyme with tidy whitey. So you're okay.
Thank you, my darling, so much. Everybody's loving this, and I know we'll get lots of feedback, which I'll pass over to you.
And check Niko out at neeks.com, neeks.com, and you will be literally gobsmacked at the music this man has produced that we've all just known and loved.
I don't remember any of it, so don't get too gobsmacked.
Wonderful.
So on 3, 1, 2, 3. Dear Niko's our boy from the past, with a friendship we thought wouldn't last. All odds, we're determined old sods, so forget it and don't run so fast.
Second verse.
Our wonderful guest from today has a talent for getting his way. If your song needs a mix, he can give it a fix, and you'll be sure it will never misplay.
96,000 files are coming your way, but guys too.
Cool. I'll see you very soon.
All right, buddy.
Bye-bye.